Hello everybody, this is Mithril Zenith, and I've been vocal about some of my displeasure for Battle Before Dawn, and today I'd like to talk about why. So, this is Battle Before Dawn as it appears in Hector Hard Mode. This is the infamous version, this is what I'll be discussing. I have some numbers marked up. The base map was taken from Fire Emblem WOD. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about why I think this map is so close to greatness, but falls off so poorly. So, first of all, map goal is to defend this guy's file. He is your goal. He is who you need to defend. He wakes up turn 1 and stands on this pillar. Beyond that, you have Jafar over here. He will attack this guy turn 1 and stay here until he either takes enough damage to activate healing AI, in which he'll retreat back like either here or here usually and use an elixir, or until his killing edge breaks, or until rarely, sometimes, he can actually die. He normally is an effective guard for this portion of the map for 4 to 5 turns. It depends, it's not guaranteed, because again, RNG, relying on green units. Relying on green units is a problem. Nino will tend to back into this corner and then 1v1 this monk for several turns, in which she generally won't die, but can sometimes get crit because she still suffers 1 or 2 crit chance, and she'll use up like either a vulnerary or an elixir, whatever she has, and healing AI in order to do so. The rest of this map is kind of as you see it here. So, what are the markings that I have on the map? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. This is assuming no dancer, so assuming no faster movement possible, no dancer, rescue strats, whatnot. This is the maximum movement that an 8-move unit, so a paladin or a promoted flyer, would be able to have. Meaning you can reach the entrance to the throne room, not even Zephyl himself, but the entrance to the throne room on turn 5, but only if you move at maximum speed. This is also a Fog of War map, so you may or may not be moving into units in the Fog of War. You might be blocked, you might have doors in front of you, you might have any sort of number of obstacles that you can't get out of the way of, blocking your progress. You also, let me put these in a different color. You also have thieves spawning from here who run this way to get the chests, and then come over this way to get these chests, and then vamoose out the map either this way or to a corner or something. If you can kill a thief who only has 1 treasure, they can get the treasure for you. These treasures are incredibly important because you have boots, the brave lance, the rescue staff, and the Delphi shield. Also, there is, I believe, an earth seal down here for you to steal, only if you actually steal it. There's some other things on the map. Notably, you have a mini-boss, Maxine, who has very high stats. I think his stats are actually even higher on Eliwood hard mode because of the weird way that his increased leveling works. And you have Ursula down here, who moves on turn 12, I believe. 11 or 12, something like that. And she has bolting, and so she can be in range of where Zephyl is by turn 13 or 14. If you don't deal with her or kill her first, whatever. So, all that said, what are the good points about Battle Before Dawn? Well, it's one of the few maps in Fire Emblem 7 that forces you to move for your critical objective. It is a defend map where your defense objective is the entire map away. It is the farthest point away by travel that you can get to. You do not have warp at this time. You do not have rescue at this time. The rescue staff is down here. You don't have any other way of increasing your movement outside of you do have Ninian. You do have a dancer. and so you can get a little bit of a boost. If you do smart rescue strats, you can boost pretty quickly and get here probably by turn 4 instead of turn 5. But realistically, turn 4 is the earliest that you can get here. And that is with like optimal movement, with dancers and rescue strats and all of that. So, it's a hard map, it's a hard objective, in an otherwise game filled with easy maps and easy objectives that are designed to reinforce turtling, routing maps, stuff like that. You have really strong units, and the enemies are not super strong. Some of these enemies are pretty strong. You have a hero over here who's pretty strong. You have, Maxime, who's pretty strong. You have this bishop who, not super strong, but can be annoying. The boss can be pretty strong. That Luna shaman can be pretty strong, or druid. And yeah, so difficult map, some strong enemies, not a ton of strong enemies, most of them are fairly standard for this point in the game. Not many enemies are pre-promoted, and you will generally have most of your units be promoted by this point, so you're gonna outstrength the enemies, but they outnumber you, and they are positioned better than you. This map is Fog of War, take it or leave it. I personally like the idea of Fog of War, even if its implementation isn't always the best. I like that it hides the enemies that you're fighting. I like Fog of War for defend maps because it always keeps you on your toes, it keeps you guarded, assuming you're not, playing... Fog of War always keeps you on edge, always keeps you guarded, always keeps you guessing at what is actually going on with the enemies. Where are they? You always have to be on edge, and I like that for a defend map, because it gives the defend map more structure, gives it more tense feeling, makes it so you don't feel confident just sitting around and waiting, even though in some cases it does end up reinforcing sitting around and waiting. We'll get to that. I kind of like how it's a Fog of War map that it has you forcibly moving into the Fog of War, really encouraging you to use stuff like torch staves, thieves, torches, all the resources at hand to reveal as much of the map as possible so you can move as quickly as possible. I don't like, and this is where we get into the flaws of the map, first of all, the biggest one, reliance on green units. If you have really bad luck, Jafar can either die or retreat to one of these two spaces by turn 2 or turn 3. If that happens, then these Swordslayer fighters get a chance to move. And so I have them here listed as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the turns that they take to get to Zephyl. By turn 5, without any high-level dancer rescue strats, closest you can be is here. Closest they can be is on Zephyl. That already shows that, for the most part, it's kind of out of your control whether or not you can actually defend Zephyl at all. Jafar has to distract them or slow them down for at least one turn, otherwise it's highly likely that he will, but there's a chance that he doesn't. And that chance being completely out of your control, nothing you can do, terrible design, considering it is a game over condition. I don't want to hear anyone defending, oh, well, it only happens every once in a while, it's not super common, and, keeping all the units alive isn't, you're not meant to keep all the units alive, it's supposed to be hard. It's like, those are BS excuses, and you should feel bad for using them, because nothing in a strategy game, like, the end result of the strategy game shouldn't be completely out of the player's hands when there are legitimate resources and rewards that you gain for completing them. They can be very hard, it can be very difficult, but if it is entirely out of the player's control, that is not, the fact that it's not vital is no excuse, because the player should have at least some ability to control this, and without warp, without rescue, without, even if they have the dancer, the fact that Jafar or Nino can die before you can even reach them, bad design. The fact that your game over condition can die before you can reach them, horrible design. And that's just point number 1. Reliance on green units. Point number 2, Fog of War, in this instance, is good and bad. It's good, it provides that tense nature, it allows you to be like, oh, I don't know that Maxine's here. I mean, everyone always brings up the argument, well, if you're on a second playthrough, or if you just look up the map ahead of time, then you know where everything is anyway, and it's like, yeah, true. But put yourselves in the shoes of a player who doesn't just metagame the fun out of their game. Put yourselves in the shoes of a player who plays the chapter put in front of them for the first time blind to have fun. This creates a fun, tense, sometimes frustrating experience. However, the fact that the speed requirement to reach Zephyl is so strict. It is incredibly strict. Turn 5, you're not even at him. Turn 6, you get to him. Turn 5, enemies can be at him before you can. He will almost always fight one enemy because this guy goes here turn 1 and then goes like here turn 2 and then fights over here. This guy, I think, also fights him turn 1 and then turn 2, but sometimes can go over to Jafar, depending on where Jafar is. It's either him or him that they can get distracted by Jafar sometimes. Anyway, I also have these here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because these mercenaries can reach him before you do. It's, again, somewhat unlikely, but they can. These heroes and generals and snipers that spawn down here can reach him before you do, because they start spawning on turn 1 or 2, and maybe 1 or 2, turn 2 or 3, and then they can reach him by turn, like, 6, if you're not super fast at getting here. Turn 6, if you get here, there is going to be a hero here, a general here, and Jafar is either dead or out of killing edge uses by that point. So, Fog of War slowing you down on a map with an already exceedingly strict movement quota. Like, this is probably the strictest movement quota for a map ever seen in legitimate Fire Emblem games. There may or may not be 1 or 2 maps that you can argue have stricter requirements in order for, like, side objectives, but for the main objective, this is the strictest movement requirement that they've ever had in a Fire Emblem map, and it shows. What's more? Okay, recruiting Nino and then recruiting Jafar, that's neither here nor there. It's an easily doable objective, assuming that they don't die in the first 2 turns. Keeping Zephyl safe, once you reach him, it's generally pretty easy. Your units are at least on par with the reinforcements that are promoted. Ursula moving. Oh yeah, that's another thing, is that in order to reach him by turn 5, like reach the doorway by turn 5, you need to be moving max movement, which means you need to put yourself in range of Ursula's bolting before she moves. This means that the unit has to be buffed up, they have to have a lot of hit points, they have to have some extra resistance, they have to have something in order to not, like, die either to that or to be severely weakened enough that they end up dying over here. I'm okay with that. I think that that provides for an extra layer of risk, an extra layer of pushing it. I don't think that's bad, inherently, but I do think that that is something worth noting, because it means that you can't safely get a unit at full HP out here. You need to plan around it. And again, plan, plan, plan. Fire Emblem is all about planning. It's a strategy game. I like it. I want to like it so much. I think that there's so many bones of good design decisions in here. The thieves coming up around here, providing extra distractions for you to do, providing extra things for you to keep your mind on. Jafar and Nino both being threatened. Jafar being threatened, but the other path being the faster path to reach Zephyl on, provides great examples of splitting your units, and great incentive to split your army. Mix of units on both sides. There's not as many units here, but the reinforcements are a lot stronger here. There's a lot more units here, but there's no reinforcements over here. It's just the boss and the boss's mercenaries. I think that's great. It's like, okay, more enemies, but weaker enemies. Fewer enemies at the start, but more enemies over time. There's so much potential here for good maps. Oh, also, and the strong mini-bosses over here, so surprise, turn 3, you're getting hit. full broadside by a really stacked paladin. There's so much potential here for it to be, hey, this could be your favorite map. It's really memorable. It's a great story setup as well, is that, hey, he's being assassinated, you need to keep him alive in order to get the Fire Emblem to them to do the ceremony, and then they can, give you access to the Shrine of Seals where you need to get Durandal, meet Bramond, whatever. Whatever it was. Great story setup, great situational setup. I think this is one of the strongest maps thematically in FE7, at least, if not in Fire Emblem as a whole. It's definitely one of the most memorable maps in Fire Emblem as a whole. However, those few downsides that take control away from the player, that take victory out of their hands potentially, even if it's a low % chance, that can potentially screw the player over without any possibility, do make it infamous instead of famous. Battle Before Dawn is so close to being a brilliant map, and it is still a very fun, very tense map to play. In my opinion, it's probably the strongest, most memorable map in Fire Emblem 7 by a country mile. However, the couple decisions that it makes by being too strict in movement timing, by being too strict in terms of relying on green unit random RNG beyond the player's control, by not allowing you the extra resources that you need in order to pass the map, in order to survive. I remember in my Zero Bases playthrough, my units weren't strong enough to muscle their way through, and they moved Jafar so that Zephyl was getting mobbed on turn 3. So what I had to do is I had to abuse the fact that I had infinite use bolting and just keep a Dancer and Urk here to bolting away all of... torch and bolting away all of the people attacking Zephyl before he got killed. That's not good map design. That's problematic at a very deep level. So what do you think, though? I'm gonna open the floor to it. My opinion is that, my final verdict is that Battle Before Dawn is almost an S-tier map, but the things that are problematic about it force it to be an F-tier map, because it just is so frustrating to have so much be out of your control and to have the requirements be so strict. Though, if it was a little bit less strict or a little bit more in favor, if Jafar either couldn't die or had like an extra sword so he didn't just use up all his killing edge uses and become useless. I'm also very scarred from the fact that I've done a solo run with Marcus and a trio run with the Three Lords most recently as my playthroughs of FE7, and that made it so I couldn't reach Zephyl until... I couldn't reach this point until turn 6. Turn 6. It was very, very difficult, and it obviously is not designed for solo play anyway, so I'm not necessarily going to hold that against the map, but I've seen the cracks, I've seen the frustrations, I've seen the worst possible outcomes for this map. I've had to reset a lot because of that, and as such, I'm here to say that I want to love the map so much, but I have to hate it because of that taking control away from the player. But that's my final verdict. What do you think? Do you think that Battle Before Dawn is a fun map? Do you think it has a lot of potential? Do you think it's crazy? Do you think it's very memorable? Are you against Fog of War entirely? Are you against reliance on green units entirely? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Let me know in the comments down below. Until next time, this is Mithril Zenith, signing out.